Hi, it's Mark DeAngelo with BandDirector.com, and I'm here with Andy of the Madison Scouts. He's the captain head for the pit front ensemble. And Andy, I just had a couple questions for you. As a band director and also a former cadet pit member,
Sure.
Now I'm the marching band director, and I've got to deal with different elements. And looking at my percussion section, I've got a number of students that are very capable, and then I've got a number of newer students, beginning members, and I'd never like to look at the front ensemble as the proverbial pit,
Right.
where it's the dumping ground,
Sure.
but it's a place where every element of the orchestration is important, but yet I still have new members I'm trying to introduce percussion to them. So can you help me in that?
Yeah, I think there are some good and bad things that go with that. You certainly don't want to be putting some of your players that are going to be holding back this growth of your front ensemble. If you're really trying to turn it into it's a big part of the activity these days. And something I've learned over the years is the front ensemble is just as much a part of in your case, the winds, or in my case, the horn line, as it is the battery. So we have time where we spend with the horn line and things. So I think bringing in wind players who maybe play reed instruments that can't go out on the field, I think that's a perfectly unique situation that we can take advantage of and try to use in our pit. Another thing I recommend is, with your beginning students, I have students come to me often for private lessons outside of drum corps, and they want to start percussion, and they're 6 or even 8 years old, and I usually recommend them starting on piano. I took piano for over a decade, and that has helped me tremendously. And then I find transferring those students into your grade school and junior high level programs, they have that background with the scales, and they have some familiarity with the keyboard.
That's great.
That helps a lot.
That leads me to another question. When I was involved in the front ensemble, we did a lot of moving around within the ensemble.
Yeah.
Are the Madison Scouts more stationary, as opposed to you're in one station, you stay the whole show, or are they moving around? And is there a pro or con to either method that you know?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to both. At this level in the game, we go with a multiple percussion approach, meaning most of our players are staying on the same keyboard through the entire show for the most part. However, they have accessories and cymbals and things mounted to that, so everything's very portable. And at this level, that gives them a consistent listening environment where they can stay in the same place, things sound the same every time. Their instrument is height adjusted to them, and so they're not playing on a keyboard it's too high and ruining different muscles all summer long. There's a lot of different advantages, so I tend to lean towards that. However, in a high school or even a middle school program, I think pedagogically speaking, there's definitely a lot of advantages to moving your players around. You want to put your students in a position where if they wanted to go on in music, maybe audition for a collegiate program, or even just play in the band as an extracurricular activity, maybe in college. You want to give them that keyboard background and make sure that they've had some attention to the vibraphone and to the marimba, some xylophone. They know how to play crash cymbals. Some of those things are things they're going to have to know to get into any competitive collegiate percussion program. So, if I were teaching in high school, I would probably be more apt to moving some of those players around so they have that experience.
This is kind of a tricky question, though, because as percussionists, we want to endorse the percussion activity.
Sure.
But what if, let's say, there's a small band that has maybe 40 members on the field? Should they go ahead and incorporate percussion in that, even if there's a couple xylophones in the front or a marimba, or should they try and get those players to be in the battery?
Yeah, I've judged different groups like that, and I've seen some really creative approaches. And I think one of the things I've seen that works the best is, as I just mentioned, it's nice to switch around in the front ensemble, but I also think you get that keyboard player who's never played on the battery, and that stuff's very important too. And so what I've seen groups do that's been very successful is they'll have a front ensemble, but they won't utilize it through the whole show. And then halfway through, or maybe in the ballad, they'll choose a moment where they can pull the battery off the field, have them come up and play some keyboards, get that experience, and then they actually put them all back out there. And so they kind of get the best of both worlds that way. If you've got a total number in your percussion of 8, that makes your battery or your front ensemble just large enough to really have some presence. So what they do is they just make them do both. And there may be a point at the end of the show where they come to the pit, and then they bring the battery drums up into the pit and use them in the actual front ensemble.
DCI these days and a lot of marching band programs are starting to incorporate amplification into pit and even in other elements. I know DCI's looking at starting to even amplify some of the brass on the field possibly in the future. How has that changed your approach, even in the listening within the pit? That now that every member of the pit ensemble is being amplified.
Yeah. Well, at first I was a little tentative. I heard amplification. I was like, I don't know about this, but the more I learned about it, the more I've really gotten on board with it. I found it allows me to teach the members of the Scouts the same way I would teach my private students at home. And I don't have to have them altering their technique. We don't have to use really hard mallets to get our sound up into the audience. In addition, it's really opened up a lot of options for color, and expressive opportunities throughout the show. We can bring in log drums, one of my favorite percussion instruments, and you can actually hear it because we can mic it appropriately. This year in the Scout show, we have a section where we use 8 cajones, which is the Latin box instruments with the snares down the middle, and we're amplifying those, and so we get a really nice feature moment there where we're playing with the battery that you can hear because of amplification.
That's very cool. Well, it looks like here comes the rain.
Yeah,
So we gotta go get the tarps out.
Take that tarp advice I was telling you about. So thanks for
a lot,
everything.
Andy.
Yeah.